So, when I first studied photography, my first day of undergrad, we downloaded textures from Google Images, we brought them into Photoshop, and then we spherized them. And then my professor told us to add Gaussian blur, and we would do it over and over again, and we would arrange a constellation of planets in a solar system, and that was my first day of studying and learning about photography.
So all of that to say that we now have some artificial background blur on our webcam, so that's very exciting. GM everyone. So for the last 365 days, I have GM'd in the JuiceboxDAO Discord, and today we'll be speaking with Jigglyjams, who built the GM bot that keeps track of GMs in Discord servers. But first, we're going to dive into Jigglyjams, the pseudonym. Definitely one of Brileigh and I's favorite pseudonyms in the Juicebox community. It brings me delight every time that I say it.
And Jiggly will also tell us about his background in electrical engineering and how you can turn your Honda Civic into a Tesla. And we also learn about Nance, which is a tool to help bring DAOs out of the Stone Age of manual governance processes.
And near the end, we also discuss Balaji's Bitcoin dystopia hellscape and how WAGMI is the new live, laugh, love for moms. So hope you enjoy this conversation.
All right, welcome to the Juicecast, Jigglyjams. It's great to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you all?
Doing pretty good.
Good.
Yeah. You've been involved in the Juicebox ecosystem for quite some time, long before Nance and other DAO toolings, including the GM bot from your time at CanuDAO. But before we get into all of that, the one thing that I always love to ask guests is where their pseudonym comes from. So what is the origin story for Jigglyjams? It's a particularly delightful pseudonym.
Yeah, I came up... So I used to work for this company called comma.ai, and they had a Discord. And I left that company in 2019 and still wanted to be snooping in the Discord and in a pseudo-anonymous way. And at the time, I had a roommate of mine had listened to Alex Honnold on some podcasts, and he had been talking about eating peanut butter as a snack. And he bought a bunch of peanut butter for our apartment, and I just got really into eating peanut butter as a meal. And so just based on that, I was I want to do something with jam for some reason, and then just came up with Jigglyjams.
All right.
Yeah, and then it just stuck. I had that Discord ID and then just didn't make a new one when I first got into the Web3 scene. Just always stuck around.
Nice. All right. Well, the best pseudonym stories always involve peanut butter.
Yeah.
So this is, so maybe, you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but maybe you could tell us what you were up to before you got involved in, as you said, the crypto scene.
Yeah.
And sort of how you first fell down the rabbit hole, as it were.
Yeah, of course. So I'll give you overall background. So I studied electrical engineering in college in upstate New York, and graduated in 2015, and then went to work for one of the big military contract companies. And I worked there 1 year and wasn't doing a whole lot. I was sometimes I would just wander the hallways with a lab coat on and a notebook, pretending to go to meetings.
Sounds great.
It was nice. It got kind of boring. I would go ask my boss for more work to do, and he'd be like, "There's more coming soon," and it would just never really happen. And that's just how those companies operate. So some locations are better than others. I was at a particularly bad one. But there were still some good people there, and I got to work on a MATLAB test suite there, which was cool. That was an initial level of software development I got to do, but was still mostly in the hardware space. And while I was there, as I was wandering the hallways, I would go on Hacker News and saw an article on The Verge about this company called comma.ai, went to their website and saw that they needed electrical engineers. So I sent them an email saying like, I'm your guy for quick turn PCBs, which was only like kind of true. I hadn't done that many. PCB stands for like printed circuit board. Yeah, it was only somewhat true. I had done some of it in school, but it's not something they teach you that much about in electrical engineering majors, surprisingly. So I'd done some on the side, but yeah, I emailed them, and then it was started by this a guy named George Hotz, who's sometimes goes by GeoHot on the internet, and he had some notoriety from like hacking the iPhone when he was like 14 years old and had like the first jailbreak on the iPhone. So he used that to like kind of raise money for this company, comma.ai, that was putting like Tesla autopilot level self-driving on your like $20,000 Honda Civic. So I was like the first hardware hire there. Yeah, so I left upstate New York, talked to George Hotz for like 30 minutes, and then moved out to San Francisco 10 days later.
Wow.
Like, packed up all my stuff. Yeah. Put my car in storage. It just flew out to San Francisco. And at the time, they were operating out of a house called the Crypto Castle. And they were operating out of the garage there. And that was like the first time I met anyone like who owned cryptocurrency. Like I had heard about Bitcoin and Ethereum, but didn't really know anyone that owned any. People would come through and like stay there a few nights and pay for rent and crypto and stuff like that. And this was in like 2016, so I remember being there during like the DAO hack, and remember my boss George like utilizing the DAO hack as well to steal some ETH, I think. Like
okay, this is a rich tapestry you're painting for us.
Yeah, it was a really fun place, and yeah, my job was to take. They had like a big gaming PC in the back of this Acura, and like a big monitor in the front. And my job was to like take that and turn it into a piece of hardware that you can install in your own car, and it was as easy to install as like a piece of IKEA furniture. That was always like the slogan of the company, and for under $1,000. You can kind of, yeah.
Did that actually? Does that product work well? I mean, it sounds like almost like a terrible idea. Like, yeah. Like I mean, it's a good idea in the sense that I could see it being a very like desirable product. But when you tell me like you're just gonna strap on this like autopilot to your Civic, it sounds kind of scary. Like I'm just curious. It's a little bit of an aside.
Yeah.
But, was this safe? I mean,
yeah. I mean, like safe is up to the user always. But no, it's surprisingly good, to be honest. Okay. Like, yeah, you install it yourself with you remove the adhesive. You stick it to your windshield. Look, it only supports cars that like come with what they call like lane keep assist and adaptive cruise control. That's what like Honda calls it. So you like unplug the camera that is like behind your rear view mirror, stick this to your dashboard, plug this device in, and yeah, it keeps you centered in your lane and will slow down when the car in front of you slows down. It's really just still for highway level driving. And it's really nice on a road trip. It takes some getting used to. Like you keep your hands on your lap, and like you still have to check your mirrors, and it'll beep at you if it needs you to intervene.
So even though you studied electrical engineering, like you've been involved in like you've had your hand in like both hardware and software kind of like from the beginning. Like you've never really been doing like strictly like electrical engineering. Like you've been for sure developing software alongside like from the start.
Yeah.
I'm curious, I guess you don't see much of a separation between these two domains. Like they're always like related for you.
I mean, it's great to just, I love doing both. Like building small hardware devices is great. It comes with its whole set of headaches, like getting stuff manufactured and working through chip shortages and lead times on parts. But once you get the hardware, like it doesn't really do anything until you put software on it. So yeah, I kind of was forced to learn it through that. I would do like some software scripting around hardware to like output design files and manage footprints for printed circuit board design. So I was always doing like Python scripting throughout my electrical engineering career, but I never got paid as a software developer until starting at like CanuDAO.
Okay. And how did you first come across like CanuDAO, and was CanuDAO your first DAO?
I think it was like in 20 early 2021, I heard about like Chia, this hard drive based cryptocurrency, and bought a bunch of servers and hard drives and started like mining Chia, which was cool. Um,
Nice.
yeah, that was fun. Learned a lot about servers. Didn't end up making any money, but learned a ton. Eventually that petered out. I think it's still around. But that was like my early start to the newer crypto scene. Then shortly after that, my sister launched a 10K PFP project called FlyFrogs with her and her husband. He's like an industrial designer who works at a toy company, and she used to work at Yelp doing like front end engineering. So she did all the smart contracting and the website, and he did all the art, and they generated 10,000 frogs, launched a Discord, and I was like helping them manage Discord bots and sales bot and bots and things like that. So I think that was kind of my first dipping my toes into what was possible in the Web3 scene.
Gotcha. Yeah, you don't hear too often that like somebody's relative is also involved in crypto. That's very interesting. Was she involved before you in like NFTs and all of that, or?
Yeah, I think so. Like this was in September 2021. I checked the OpenSea page for FlyFrogs. I think she got into it through like what's his name? Austin Griffith's Web3 ETH scaffold stuff,
Mhm.
Totally.
and was just like fascinated and wanted to be able to do something that her and her husband could do together. And I think they were just like brainstorming ideas for different PFP projects, and just came up with this like little simple frog design that they really liked, and then just like ended up, writing a simple smart contract to do all the NFT side of things. And then she had a lot of experience from Yelp doing front end design, and it's just cool that you can do the whole thing with just a few people. That's like the exciting part. I had done like Python stuff at my old companies, just small scripting, but then everyone was using Node and JavaScript for everything. So finally convinced myself to learn that after looking at a lot of tutorials. And I think later that year I saw like SharkDAO, and saw that like people would get super excited every time a new noun came out, because they would like discuss whether they should bid on it based on the traits that it had. So I made a little bot for them that just listened to the smart contract that nouns is based on, and then would just send a message in Discord with all of the traits that it had. And people really enjoyed that too.
Cool.
Yeah. I was doing both of those things, like the FlyFrog project and SharkDAO, and then just was tagged in a tweet about CanuDAO where Zug was just asking for somebody to build this GM bot. I believe it was Nicholas's idea initially, and Nicholas and Zug and I would chat a lot during those days. So I saw that tweet, like jumped into CanuDAO. They gave me this GM bot project. Zug was awesome to work with, and shout out to Fightan as well, who was another dev at CanuDAO at the time. So we'd work together on a lot of stuff. And I think, I submitted a proposal to like finally get paid to build the GM bot, which was like my first time just being paid to develop software, which just felt really good. It was just nice to finally be validated that, I could do this thing. Like a lot of my past companies, like I would have these little scripts, but then they like wouldn't fully buy into me developing software. So it was cool to have like real buy-in, and just like break down the mentality that I couldn't do this thing. So it felt good when I first joined CanuDAO.
Yeah, we both love Zug. I miss having Zug around because he's moved on to another role. He's no longer a JuiceboxDAO contributor. But yeah, let's talk about the GM bot. So I think the GM bot is a stroke of genius. I'm unsurprised to hear that Nicholas was involved, because it seems like, I don't know, Nicholas is like the seed of all these many things in Juice. I don't know. He's very funny that way. He's everywhere. He's always working on something.
Yeah.
But So maybe just some context for anyone listening who might not be aware, like the GM bot, basically you GM in the channel, like a lot of Discords have a GM channel. But this is a bot that will react to your GM message and will basically keep track of how many times you've consecutively GM'd in the channel. So it'll respond with like 1, 2, 3, etc. And it'll just keep counting up. And there's sort of like a leaderboard of GMers. So it's like a gamified kind of like community building experience. And I don't know, I find it really sweet and wholesome, and I have made it my mission to stay on top of this. So today I have officially GM'd 365 times consecutively in the JuiceboxDAO Discord for yes, thank you. So I'll be expecting like a JBX disbursement or something. Yeah, so I'm just wondering, tell us a little bit maybe about like some of the motivations for building the bot. Like I know that you kind of like got roped in like to the CanuDAO thing, but I'm just curious to hear more about, like just why this thing was brought into existence and what the idea was.
Yeah, for sure. As you said, Nicholas stems from a lot of these ideas in one way or another. He's a loose thought king, like just coming up with loose thought ideas
So true.
that just like balloon into giant entities. That's how I would put it. I think it just started as a tweet from Nicholas or Zug. Yeah, they wanted some way to gamify all these GM channels they were seeing in different Discords. So, I mean, that was the basic start of the idea. Yeah, we wanted like a simple way of tracking GMs. There's like a small Mongo database that keeps track of everyone's GMs. Initially, we didn't have like when you GM right now, it responds with emojis of the number of times you GM'd, as Matthew explained. And initially, we didn't have that, and like everyone would always just GM and then like send the command to see how many GMs they had sent. I think like Zug and I came up with the idea of just like responding with emojis, which I think makes it fairly unique. I've seen one other GM bot, which like when I first saw, I was like, oh no, there's another GM.
The GM bot space is so competitive these days.
It's a tough space. There's a lot of competition now. Yeah, seeing competition is sometimes good to like validate your idea. But I think it's one of the unique things is that it responds with the number of times you've said it. I've also set it up such that you can have it track other words. So like in the FlyFrog Discord, I have it track ribbits. So you can track other words. And then you can also see like your total number of GMs. If you miss a day and you lose your streak, it still keeps track of like total GMs ever said, which is cool. Yeah, writing that was fun. It's just a simple Node.js bot and MongoDB keeping track of everyone's stats. And yeah, it's hosted on, I don't know where it's hosted right now. I think Phytan took it over. It's somewhere in the cloud.
It's somewhere. Yeah, I mean, it's funny too. Like I have that streak, but I have never GM'd any other times. Like it's a perfect streak. Like I've never. That was like the first time that I GM'd. I kept it going until this point in time, one year later. And I think the plan is that we should, like Brileigh and I will endeavor to maintain this, mostly me, but to maintain this such that maybe we can apply for a Guinness World Record because I mean, I don't know. I just feel like it's unlikely that someone else will go over, like, I don't know, like if I could hit 2 or 3 years consecutive, like maybe we could get a record, But anyway, this is like so far off topic. I'm wondering, maybe you could tell us about some other bots that you've written along similar lines over the last like year or two.
Yeah, I think that's most of them, like GM bot, the SharkDAO bot. Oh yeah, I was working like Tiles is another project that's big on Juicebox that Perry created and has been on the Juicecast about. There was a bot there for a while that would like listen for new tiles being minted and display them in Discord. Yeah, it's interesting, like when you first start a project, your community is really interested in seeing when something is minted. But then this happened in FlyFrogs, like we would have a mint bot. But then once like the flood of mints come and like the project has a lot of minting, it actually becomes less interesting because there's like too much information, and most mint bots like just aren't as useful because the channel's just being filled with new NFT mints that are happening. Then people get interested in like sales that are happening. So it's been cool to just be in the fast growing bot space. It's been interesting like figuring out how to fund all of these endeavors since like there's so much free stuff in this space. And yeah, so having like a DAO that you're linked to is obviously very nice and useful. I mean, there's a lot of grants out there through other larger DAOs or Gitcoin type things. Start exploring that soon as well. But yeah, I think that's it for bots. And all of these bots are just like better Zapier. Like everyone thinks you can you could do a lot of automations with Zapier, but once you like can't do this one thing you want to do, like you want to customize the message or include an image in a way that Discord allows it to be displayed, not just as a link. Like once you get those kind of intricacies, you just have to write code, unfortunately or fortunately.
Fortunately, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been cool to see how much people like GMBot. And like I have a little dashboard that shows like all the different communities and their total GMs. I think it might be down right now. I might have to fix it before this comes out. But it's cool to see like total community engagement. Think like Juicebox is up there. There's some other random NFT project called like Breadheads that I think just found the GM bot somehow. I don't even remember. And like they're up there still. There's a few like music DAOs using it. And it's, yeah, I mean, gamification of these things is always fun. I know a lot of apps do it. Like I started using like Duolingo. I only got to like 3 days of doing it in a row, but once you get that streak going, there's something in your mind that's like, I gotta keep it up. Obviously you have it, Matthew, because you kept up for a whole year. Which
I don't know. I feel like a bit of a psycho, honestly, because it's like, because I don't know. It's just, I just incorporate it into my everyday, like it's part of my routine now, such that like, I don't know. It's usually like right when I wake up, like I will just, I mean, not always, because obviously, I'm not a robot, but I've just tried to, it's like part of my life now. So
yeah, it sounds like Brileigh is also helping as well. Maybe some reminders.
Yeah, there have been a couple times where like if we go traveling, like I'll suddenly remember because I eventually forgot like my stroke and I lost. It's like you lose everything. And so like you have like almost this anxiety where like, Matthew, like, did you say GM in the Juicebox Discord yet? And he's like, oh, yeah, like I already did it. Or, oh, like, yeah, I'll do it like right now. So yeah, there's definitely like an interesting aspect of how it plays into like your everyday routine. So yeah. And it sounds like with all the other Discords that have it, like Matthew may have some competition to keep up with as well.
Yeah, I have to add to the leaderboard like single user streaks across multiple servers that I think we still have to implement. The way GMBot works is it accepts a GM every, I think it's 16 hours. So, and I made it that way such that because people in the Web3 space are up very late at night. So oftentimes you would GM like maybe at 4 a.m. because you're still awake. And then like you want to be able to GM later and not like, so it's not technically 24 hours. So someone in the FlyFrog server, I think they would like set a time, like a alert on their phone such that they would GM like literally every 16 hours. So they had more ribbits. In that case, it was ribbits, but they had a longer streak than the bot had even existed.
So what number did they hit with this? I would call it cheating, but what did they get up to?
I have to look. I think maybe they got to like 450 or something crazy.
Shit. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm working on it.
You'll get there. Well,
we'll
now
try
you
and
know
get
the
to
secret.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I must proceed with, with valor and noble intentions only. I cannot take advantage of the system that is presented to me. I must respect the GM bot.
Respect the GM bot in its original form. Yeah, but there's some alpha that you can GM every 16 hours. So if anyone's listening, you can encroach on Matthew's streak, maybe.
Shit.
But no, it's really hard. Like, I'm impressed that you can do it on the weekends, right? Because, like, it's hard if you're in your routine during the week, and then, like, weekends, you do things a little differently in your life, and you forget, or you're traveling, the time zones change. It's all very confusing.
Yeah, so we're going to ETH Global in Tokyo in
cool.
April, and this is the biggest stress of the trip. It's not the flight, it's the GM bot, because we're gonna land, and it's roughly the opposite. Like, if it's 9 p.m. where we live, it's approximately like 8 or 9 a.m. in Tokyo. So we're gonna be really thrown off our rhythm. So I'm gonna have to in the same day, I'm gonna have to like GM, like it'll feel like I'll have to GM in the evenings when we're there, but I'm just gonna have to be really, really careful on the on the transition.
I mean, yeah, so if you do GM too early, it'll just respond with the clock emoji, so you can test the waters and know when it's ready for your next GM. And if you do like exclamation point GM space WEN, I think it tells you like the next time you can GM.
Yeah. I feel like in many ways, like terms like GM or WAGMI, they've become like a crypto cliche, and maybe sometimes even a little bit cringy, but I'd still like to ask, like, what does GM mean to you? And maybe like, how is that meaning changed from the bull to the bear market?
Yeah, I like how you phrase that, because like, yeah, during the bull market, like everyone does wake up like just super happy because they're rich, or and they're like,
not anymore.
It's a GM. Like, everything is great. Like, my ETH's worth $4,000. During the bear, it's like people are less into GMing, but it's just nice to, like, I think probably like you'll often just like send a nice photo with like a GM, or I started sending it to like friends just over text as well. It's just like GM sir, GM friend. Like, I love FREN is great. WAGMI, I think I explained to like my parents. My mom loves WAGMI.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It's just a great phrase. Like GM and WAGMI is all about big pies, right? Like, everyone in the world is trying to say we have a small pie that you can only divvy up so much, and you inevitably end up with haves and have-nots. But that's just not true. That's just made up by the haves to keep you out, And like, GM and WAGMI is all about just everyone can have a lot if they choose to. So it's exciting. Like, just sending a GM in the morning to a friend is a great way to start the day.
We don't need to do like a whole, like, we're going to get to Nance. Like, we're not going to do the whole episode about the GM bot, because like people listening are going to be like, enough about the fucking GM bot already. But I'm curious, like, job. Yeah. But I wonder, like, personally, like, I think of the GM bot as like a community building tool, because it encourages you to form a habit to come to the Discord. So it's like, yeah, I mean, it's like, it's fun and it's cute and it's all these things, but it's also like kind of like Discord retention and like, keeping people engaged, which is hard over long periods of time. It's easy. Well, I mean, it's easy when the market is good, but it's also easy at the start of a project when everyone is super excited. But then, 6 months, 12 months later, it's really difficult to keep people engaged with, either a product or a protocol or like a community, like whatever it is. I guess I'm curious, like, do you have some thoughts on kind of like what keeps communities together, like especially in a market like this? I'm just curious.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, it keeps people coming back. It just gets them back in Discord to send one message, and then they're there looking at the updates in the art channel or something. I think it is really good at that. I do remember one other bot I have in the FlyFrog Discord is like, you can send like exclamation point FFFR, and it'll like send a random frog to the channel, And then like people will comment like, "Oh, that frog is so thirsty" or something.
Nice.
So like that level of community engagement is interesting too. Another bot is like new juice who dis. So like whenever a new Juicebox project is created, it sends a message to Discord. Just today I like added Twitter support for that. So I think there's a bot out there. Now we sit and wait and see if anyone makes a new project and if it tweets properly. You don't necessarily need new content. You need like a reminder of content once people are in Discord or on Twitter to just be like, oh yeah, that is a thing still. Like, I wonder what's going on there. Oh.
Yeah. Juicebox definitely has like a very vibrant community, a very interesting, unique collective of people. Like everyone that I meet in Juicebox is just very like interesting on their own. And so like together it's a very interesting community. And in addition to that, like it also has like a very active DAO. Like in fact, like according to a report from Masari, a 2022 Masari report, JuiceboxDAO ranked second in like the DAO landscape of having like the most active governance process. And like not that that's a competition, because like, you know, sometimes it feels like homework. Like there's just like a lot going on in like Juicebox. But I'm wondering if like you can take us back to like the Stone Age of like Juicebox governance. Like, do you remember like what Juicebox was like before like you started contributing to JBDAO governance automation like with Nance?
I was operating under CanuDAO and like we had the GM bot and there was like another bot that was just called like GovBot. And GovBot would just alert you like what day it was in the governance cycle. So for anyone who doesn't know, like Juicebox operates on this 2-week governance cycle. There's like 3 days where any proposals that have come in are put through like a temperature check phase where people in Discord can comment on the proposal and the author can make edits according to those comments. They can just have a conversation around it in Discord. After the 3 days, then all of the proposals get pushed to Snapshot, where off-chain voting is occurring. After that, you know, we figure out which proposals passed and which didn't, and the ones that did are implemented. And then there's a period for the multi-sig to execute all those transactions, and then a delay period where more proposals can come in and the cycle can start over. Before I was involved with Juicebox, like Philip V and Stevie G were doing a lot of kind of manually shepherding of data around between Notion is where all the proposals in Juicebox were being written and stored using their databases. So stuff would be copied from Notion over to Snapshot. And in addition, like Philip or Stevie G would have to make like a Discord thread for each proposal in order to start that temperature check and discussion phase around it. And, you know, I saw this process where people were like copy pasting stuff and having to like be alerted like, hey, can you start a thread for this proposal? And like my mind just wanted to automate everything about that process to just prevent like random errors from copying and pasting stuff and just take a load off people who have to like be on the computer to do that at a specific time. So yeah, that was kind of the Stone Age era was like just a lot of copy pasting.
Okay, so there was the Stone Age, and then came Nance. So I actually was curious because like obviously the name is playing off of like the term nonce, like the blockchain term. But do you say more like Nance, or do you do more of like a nonce, like a soft like a? I was just curious.
I do like an A, like a full on A, just Nance.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, the play on nonce was actually like over my head in the beginning. So I did Nance just because governance, which like you don't really say it as harshly as Nance,
Nance,
but like
yeah.
you say like governance.
Right.
So as like a cute kind of governance shorthand would just be Nance. And then I think it was Django who was like, yo, it's governance or something like that.
Of course it was Django who pointed that out.
I was like, holy crap, that's so cool. But I stuck with Nance. I don't know. I just thought it was hilarious when I first came up with it. I was like, it's Nance. It's funny.
Yeah, I remember when I was a teenager, I went to high school with someone named Cameron, and his parents were named Nancy and Jerry, and he had this strange habit of he would speak to his parents in like the first person. He wouldn't say like mom or dad. He would say like Nancy and Jerry, and he would just refer to them because it's very awkward when you're like younger to like refer to your parents as their
It's
like
so awkward.
name.
I feel like it pisses them off so much.
I'm sure, but it's like anyway. So whenever I hear the name like Nance, I always think of like Nancy and Jerry. Anyway,
That could be a good, companion product to the Jerry.
Jerry. So I've heard Nicholas describe Nance as governance as a service, and I'm curious, like, we can dive into exactly like how this works, but like, what is your like high level overview of Nance? Like, what exactly is this tool, and how does it work?
Sure. So yeah, Nance has become quite a large beast in the past few months. It started as, Juicebox has proposals in Notion. They push them to Snapshot and Discord to discuss. So it started out just connecting Notion to Discord and then Snapshot on a kind of regular interval based on like a calendar of events. So it started out as that. The plan was always to, Notion is great. It's pretty. It's, you can interact with it with an email address and you can leave comments, but it's obviously super centralized. And I know there are other services out there that have started like banning Web3 and crypto communities. So I think there's vulnerabilities in the Juicebox governance process as a result of that. And, I've always wanted to have like a more Web3 decentralized place to store proposals. So we're utilizing this at Juicebox now, where I've integrated this system called Dolt, which is dolthub.com. They're basically, they say GitHub and MySQL had a baby, and it gives you Git-like version control for your MySQL database. So to me, that screamed like, hey, this has a great application in the decentralized database Web3 space. So we've started storing proposals in that Dolt database. And so we're trying to, push away from Notion to kind of be a more decentralized entity. But, take a step back. Nance, I always have seen as an automated governance system. It's a place you can submit proposals. Your community can discuss them right away. Once, we give a thumbs up, thumbs down in Discord, they can be forwarded to Snapshot. And that whole system just operates on a calendar schedule or as needed basis, so that you don't have to have someone in the community doing that. I think when you like lower the barrier to entry to governance, you'll have more engagement. Like if you as a community member know that like Stevie G or Philip have to go like do all this work if you submit a proposal, like it might like make you think twice about submitting something. So I think like lowering that barrier to entry and just taking that load off someone helps a ton with just better governance proposals being submitted.
Okay, so do you see Nance as like a public good for all DAOs? Like, are you seeking for it to become like a generalizable tool, or do you see it as specific to governance that is cyclical like Juicebox? Because Juicebox is somewhat particular in that it revolves around this 14-day cycle. So I'm just curious how you see this becoming more generalized going forward.
Yeah, right now it's pretty ingrained with the 14-day cycle, but it's built pretty modularly such that we can adjust it as needed. We're looking for more people to utilize Nance in a more generic way. I mean, there's a lot of coupling with Juicebox, the protocol, as well. So when someone submits a proposal, they can also attach like a payout amount to it, and that gets put in a separate database then. And if that proposal passes, that database is looked through, and then a Juicebox funding cycle reconfiguration is like built by Nance, and you can submit it to the Gnosis multisig through the front end for Nance. So the answer is yes, definitely looking for more people to utilize Nance. It's hard to find like communities that will use it like on a regular enough basis to make it worthwhile, like for them to set up and maintain. Right now, there's like still some heavy setup things I have to do. I'm lowering that barrier as well, and like I think maybe in a month or so you'll be able to come on to like Nance.app and create a new Nance instance for your organization where you would just enter like your Discord details and your multi-sig address, and maybe if you have a Juicebox project associated with it, and then it could run all those things for you.
I'm also wondering, like, if you see this mostly in the context of off-chain DAOs, or do you see this also being a tool that on-chain DAOs might use as well?
I think it's a good way to like start off-chain and then kind of slowly put more of your governance on-chain. So like Nance is built pretty modularly, right? Like you can plug in your Juicebox project and start submitting things to it. So it's like touching on-chain a little bit there. But I also see it as a place where, you could start with a snapshot-based governance system and you submit your proposals through the Nance front end. But then, where your proposal would be stored in the Nance database. But eventually, I could see, hey, you go to the same Nance front end and now you check a box, I want this proposal to be on-chain. And now you're submitting to an on-chain governance system, but you're still using the same front-end interface. So it's kind of like a nice on-ramp to on-chain governance, which is like the most kind of we use the term trustless. It's kind of an interesting term, but the most trustless system would be all on-chain governance. And then with on-chain governance, you also get all these automations because things are just happening when you submit transactions. So yeah, that's the big advantage of on-chain governance, which like it seems like Juicebox will move to maybe early next year or something along those lines. And I see Nance as a way as an on-ramp to on-chain governance.
Interesting, yeah. And like in your last JuiceboxDAO proposal, like you actually reduced your payout, which like isn't necessarily common for like most contributors, but it was for the motivation to like make Nance more sustainable. And so I'm wondering if you can share like what some of your plans are for like making that happen.
Sure. I reduced my payout, and the idea was like to incentivize myself to find other paying customers. It didn't play out exactly as I imagined. Still on the hunt for new contributing customers. But the idea is within the next few days actually like launch a real Nance Juicebox project that JuiceboxDAO will hopefully contribute to with a new proposal. But it'll also be a space where Gitcoin grants could be received, or if other Juicebox projects like Peel or WAGMI or whoever else is in our ecosystem wants to have a Nance instance, they could maybe contribute on an as needed basis as well. There's some concepts around maybe an initial fee that gets you like 3 months of support to kind of onboard you to the system. It's difficult to really find like a bit of, I don't know, to say a real business model for it, because like governance as a service it's often hard to justify, even though you would save a ton of time not having to pay a community member to like shuffle data around. It can be non-obvious when you first are signing up and starting governance. So I think moving to this more like grant model that Nicholas has proposed over the past few weeks is interesting. It's been great to have like 2DAM building the whole front end for Nance. It started out on Juice Tool I think it's at juicetool.com, is where like the front end for Nance first started, built by 2DAM, and now it's migrated to jbdao.org, where you can go and see all the proposals, submit a new proposal, and that's also the site where you can go reconfigure your Juicebox project. So it's been great working with 2DAM. Yeah, Nance is doing all the back end stuff, and he's doing all the front end. And it's been cool. It's hard sometimes with time zones because 2DAM's based in China. I think we're meeting tomorrow. But it's been a ton of fun to have like another person to work with on it. And Nicholas has been coming up with kind of user UX experience stuff and higher level ideas, and yeah, it's awesome to have him on board too.
Dream team. I love it.
It's been a fun team. So I think, yeah, with the new Nance JB project, we'll put some of Nicholas and 2DAM's payouts on there, I think would be a good idea. Still all very free flowing, happening live. And yeah, I mean, another shout out to like Django for being just so supportive of Nance. It's awesome to like hear all his wisdoms on it, and just that he sees it as such an integral part of how Juicebox does governance and how maybe other communities could do governance. I've heard him say before that maybe you start with a Discord community and a Nance instance, and maybe you don't even have a Juicebox project yet, and like Nance could be the place where you vote whether you should launch a Juicebox project, and could even launch your project for you, as that's a feature of the Juicebox protocol. So lots of cool ways to implement it.
I'm curious because you've brought up a couple times like your interest in automation and like automating things to help people, focus on other tasks that are less, menial. And so I'm wondering, like, because right now at this point in time, like if you go on Twitter, it's pretty much, I don't know, if it's not a tweet about Balaji, then it's a tweet about, GPT-4 and, automation and how AI is going to transform, the job market and various aspects of our lives. So I guess I'm just curious, like your thoughts. You seem to me like less of a AI doomer, like I don't see you in that camp of thinking like, oh man, none of us are going to have jobs and we're all screwed. I see you like more on like the utopic side of like, well, now that we have these tools, what else can we do? Or like, how can we, take advantage of this technology to improve our lives. So I'm wondering if you could just, share your thoughts on like what you see coming for AI and automation and the moment that we find ourselves in.
For sure. Yeah, I'm definitely less on the AI doomer side. I think I'm more on the AI. It has like a ton of good abilities, but when it's wrong in such a confident way. I think that's the biggest doom of it. But like all of this stuff is like people do the exact same thing. Like people are always convincing other people of like wrong things as well. So I think you will definitely have to be skeptical of it still. I think it's just another tool. I've used it a little bit to like help debug code, or maybe like write like a Linux daemon script or something random like that is kind of often hard to find on Stack Overflow or other sources. So it's good at like kind of curating answers for a common problem, but for a lot of like high level, more unique tasks, it just doesn't really understand what to do yet. I think maybe in a few years it'll be at that level. But yeah, I just see it as another tool that people are going to use, and I don't think it'll be this big doom job replacer that everyone's saying. I think there will be companies that will like monitor network traffic and like, give people a bad performance review if they like use ChatGPT too much during work hours. But yeah, I've written a small script that helps me test Nance with like submitting proposals to it. So I have ChatGPT like write a proposal asking for X amount of money and write a title for it and then put it in this format. So that's kind of cool. So it's good for a lot of stuff. I think it's another tool. I think it's a lot of blown out of proportion about how much doom it could bring. Once maybe it's like developing the robotics to like get into the real world. I think the AI GPT stuff may be a little scarier, but we're just not that good at robotics, unfortunately. Like developing the actuators to make like humanoid robots is like still so poor.
Well, good thing we suck so bad at this, because it could be detrimental to a lot of jobs. But again, like there's always two sides to this, like to this concern, because it's like there are ways to make that happen that again give us more time, and also like a lot of manual labor, is endlessly hard on bodies and people, and like if we can replace that in a way that is like beneficial to everyone, then like that could be a good thing.
And bottom line, like it'll happen if it's cheaper than paying someone to do it. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's just how it goes. And like once also there's like humans are just lazy, so like once they see something done easily, like every time you have to do it manually, you're like hurting a little bit inside. So whether that's like with Nance or AI doing something for you, it just kind of it just gets adopted because that's how people seem to operate in this lazy manner.
Before we wrap up, is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to discuss, or any juicy closing thoughts?
I don't know. Any other juicing thoughts? There's a super simple, like very minimal Nance splash page at nance.app you can check out. It literally just links to jbdao.org. I think that's it. Yeah, look out for a Nance Juicebox project launching soon on the internet near you. And yeah, thanks for having me on the Juicecast.
Yeah, of course. I mean, thank you so much, Jigglyjams. It's been really nice to like sit down and like really connect with you. It's funny because like we all like work in the DAO together, but like we very rarely get to spend like time connecting with with one another. So like through the Juicecast, it's like an opportunity for like Matthew and I to connect, whether that's with like project builders or JBDAO contributors or other people like in the broader ecosystem. So it's a treat for us.
It's always fun to meet on video since we rarely do it. And yeah, like town halls are great. I mean, but just being voiced, there's some level of not interpersonal connection. So awesome to do video and dox myself slightly.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Jiggly. It was fun, and we'll put some links in the show notes to jbdao.org and the Nance splash page, and we'll be looking out very closely for the Nance Juicebox project. So let's fucking go.
Hell yeah! Thanks.
Sick. All right, I'm gonna stop the recording. I think we're good,
unless you guys want me to redo any part.
No.
Okay, cool.
No, it's all good. There's this funny thing that happens where you get off a call, like when you record a podcast. I don't know why this is, but you get off the call and then you start talking to the person about, you'll say like, oh, how was that for you?
Right.
And then people will drop their best tidbits from like the whole conversation right at the end after we've pressed stop, and they'll go on this tangent. They'll be like, yeah, so and they have this like galaxy brain take about something that's super relevant to what we were talking about, and then they'll be like, yeah, I've just been thinking about this, and so we always leave it on at the end because we're like, oh, what if what if they say something else?
Yeah, we could talk about Balaji. That shit's been crazy.
Every tweet is about goddamn Balaji. I mean, I have nothing against the guy. Like, I think he's definitely had some moments of prescience, and like he's certainly an interesting thinker and whatever. But it just feels like, I don't know, just to me feels like a huge publicity stunt. Because I think I was talking to Brileigh about this earlier, but it's like, it's not only one, it's two publicity stunts, because it's the publicity stunt of him saying this is going to happen, so then he goes on the podcast and the TV shows and whatever, but it's then a follow-up of like, okay, it's been 90 days, what happens? And either way he wins, because
Right.
it's like if he's wrong, then people want to have him on to like, basically shit talk him. But then if
Right.
he's right, I mean, then he also gets to be like the prophet, who
The
is right.
Bitcoin
So
profit.
yeah, so
Yeah, I
Nostradamus,
mean, and I feel like he admitted that it was like more of a way to just increase, just a
His
way to
bag.
increase his bags, first of all, and just like interest in Bitcoin. I think like he kind of admitted that, right? And like I think it seems like he might reach like 1 million Twitter followers, which is something. Maybe that was his real goal. Um, I don't know. It definitely like just reading my Twitter feed right now. I'm like, holy shit, I have to buy more Bitcoin. Like I have to get rid of my dollars. The banking system's collapsing, which is like there's some truth to it. I mean, we'll see what the government does to prop it up. It seems hard to let it just crumble the way it could. Like it's set up to just kind of crumble at any moment, but I don't think they're gonna let it.
Yeah. Matthew often says like, yeah, well, the US dollar isn't really like, if it's made out of thin air, but like it's
Yeah.
mostly just like backed by the military. So
Yeah.
like, I don't know, like there's so many other things that like
Yeah.
are existing around it that kind of like keep it in place, that I don't think it's like super easy to be like, well, there was like a bank run, so I guess all the other banks are like gonna go after that. And it's like to just be like, well, if that happens, then Bitcoin's going to $1 million.
Right. It's a big jump.
Well,
Yeah.
I also just, I don't know. I find it like a very insidious form of doomerism because it's like, I mean, okay, Balaji has hundreds of millions of dollars. Like the guy's gonna be like all right no matter what
Yeah.
happens. Like whether Bitcoin goes, well, okay, not if Bitcoin goes to zero, but like he's gonna be all right. Like the guy is fucking loaded. But if this actually happened, like if we were truly in a hyperinflated USD, like in that world, in that timeline, like shit would be so bleak, like for just
Yeah.
lived realities of Americans and other people around the world. Like you'd be worried about like having enough guns on hand. Like you wouldn't be worried about your crypto bags. Like you'd be worried about like people like breaking down your door to steal your fucking like food,
Yeah, totally.
Like this would be the darkest possible timeline. And then these assholes are just like, yeah, Bitcoin, laser eyes.
We've got
And it's
our
just
Bitcoin.
I don't know. It's just like so tone deaf to be like, yeah, this is gonna happen. It's
Totally.
like, well, like are you prepared for that scenario? Because it's dark, friend. Like this is not a thing that we should be cheering for. Like I think it's a bad look for crypto personally, because like you're cheering on like basically people's lives going to shit so that your like Bitcoin bags like pump. Like it's not a good look.
No.
I'm sorry, but it's really not.
Yeah, like that frame is like definitely not a good look. I think it's more just about pointing out that like there is an exit. I feel like that's his whole point. It's like you can exit from the system. And like he also like tweeted a video about like the changing world order, like this Ray Dalio. It's a book and there's like a short animated video, which I would recommend watching. That was pretty cool. And it just describes how, throughout time, empires like their rise and fall cycles, and we're just on that kind of fall cycle where like China might surpass us or whatnot. I did listen to his like 7.5 hour interview with Lex Friedman.
Oh my God, all 7.5 hours?
It was not, I think I listened to it over like a month or something. It's really, it's pretty great. Like just the way he describes how Bitcoin is just a better Federal Reserve, and like that's the way to do new innovations, is just make a better system and people will use it because it's better and faster. And like that's that kind of laziness aspect I was talking about before. It's like once people see something another way, like they'll remember it and be upset with themselves when they have to do it the harder way.
I don't know if you follow, there's this account on Twitter, Dystopia Breaker. Anyway, really good account, mostly writing about like cryptography and ZK stuff. I can send you the link. But they posted this, there's this article in The Economist, and the title of the article is America's banks are missing hundreds of billions of dollars. Yeah. And it's like a real headline in The Economist. And it's like, well, yeah, no shit. Like, I mean, do you know what a bank is? I mean, like these people are, it's a complete shell game. Like the whole thing is just a fractional reserve banking is pretty wild. Like when you actually like sit down and think about it, it's like your money just I mean, it's kind of like people talk about there being no fundamental value to crypto, but it's like, have you like thought about the money in your bank? Like
Yeah,
the money in your bank has very little value too. Like,
yeah, the whole
anyway.
world is just so illiquid. Like there could be runs on any bank. Like when
So
FTX was
true.
happening, I was just like thinking like this could happen to any bank. It's the same shit. Like if everyone wants to get their money out.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just wild to me that like your deposit in a bank is basically like an unguaranteed loan
Right.
that you're making to the bank. Like,
Yeah, and they go and
when you
make
get down,
money with your money. Like and they give you a
yeah,
tiny bit of the money they make.
yeah,
And
it's
like
just wild.
yeah, for so long we just had zero interest rates that it just led to all this crazy shit, including NFTs.
True.
But
Yeah,
it
zero
created,
interest rate phenomenon.
yeah, but it created like a lot of cool stuff. I think it was worthwhile. Hopefully, it doesn't end in big doom. But
With that hopeful note, well,
you can sample that. Like, hopefully, it doesn't end in big
yeah.
doom.
Hopefully, this doesn't all end in big doom. Yeah,
Bigdoom.com.
big doom. Yeah, that's like Balaji's like rapper name, like Big Doom. Anyway, all right. Well, thanks again, and yeah, we'll talk soon.
Talk soon.